Now,
Good evening. This evening we're meeting Nan Akasha, spiritual mentor, shamanic guide, and sacred feminine mystery teacher who is a visionary that has traveled directions and dimensions for 36 years and embodies the Akasha, a fifth level Melchizedek master and 3 times Egyptian mystery school initiate. Akasha is a shamanically trained healer in Lakota Sioux and Mayan traditions. Since living with the Maya, she's received 8 Jaguar Vision Medicine Women initiations and has the uncanny ability to see right to the core of your challenge and into your spirit body. As a master light body healer, hypnotherapist, and homeopath, she's able to travel, see, sense, and move energy through time, space, and dimensions to create soul healing through all lives. She's the founder of the Mystery School of Sacred Feminine Arts, Intuition Awakening, and Light Body Healing, and live Sacred Soul Awakening retreats around the world. Akasha is a wisdom keeper and a clear spirit guide, animal and dolphin communicator, as a conduit for the magical realms and an oracle for the timeless prosperity grandmother dream weavers. Her clients say she is a heart chakra on legs and a miraculous oracle. Living on the beach with her soulmate in the Yucatan, she bathes you in love and joy and opens you to inner truth, power, purpose, and path. Please join me in welcoming Nan Akasha. Welcome, Nan.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm really pleased to be here. This is going to be really fun.
Thank you so much for joining us. And you are going to be one of the featured speakers at the Glastonbury conference. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But please share with us your path and how it unfolded.
Well, like most people, it fell apart and then it opened up. And so, one of the best wisdom school teachings is that everything's an opportunity, which is what my daughter, who passed on, came back to tell us, and became the header of my website for a long time. Is everything is opportunity, because it made me look at things from upside down, from inside out. And if this is an opportunity and it's guided by my soul, so to speak, then if it looks bad, or I feel like it's negative, or it hurts, or it causes pain, it's actually liberating me. And it's liberating me from something that I didn't know I needed out of. So I had a very successful fashion design business outside after college, and the 3.5 years into business, externally, at the end of the 80s, everything fell apart. The economy crashed, and the department stores to the specialty stores to the catalogs that I sold to didn't pay. And so not only did I have to close my business, but I went through a personal crisis because I didn't know people didn't pay their bills. I had no clue that this was possible. I just wasn't raised that way. I didn't have that. And it was a crisis of my identity, because everything I'd done to that point was to please my family and, fit in and do everything perfect the way everybody else wanted it. And I felt like everything I had done was a waste, because all the resources I had in that business, and I didn't know what to do. And yet now, of course, it was one of the very best things that's ever happened to me, and a series of what I call deconstructions throughout my life, from my daughter dying to my 3.5-year marriage that led to bankruptcy that was just epic, and making millions in several different businesses, to losing everything, sweating at night, not knowing how I'm going to feed my kids, getting up and the sheets are wet when you come back to bed, and every aspect of that. And now I understand, because as a spiritual teacher, my path is to go through all that shit and then be able to turn around and say, oh, okay, guess what? And I think that's the beauty of our path in our life, that we're not told to look at, that we're told to judge by how much money we make, or how sustained our relationships or our marriage or our career is in the way that's acceptable to everyone. So the gifts of my life was constantly thinking I wasn't good enough. And that was one of those conditioned mindsets that I know everybody's, waking up to now, right? And that path of being thrust into a situation where I was trying my whole life to please everyone, right? To be what everybody wanted, therefore making myself wrong naturally. So I wasn't listening to my inner voice. I wasn't, after childhood, after it was no longer appropriate to talk to the fairies publicly. Yeah, there's the phase of that constantly. And then having the breakdown of complete shame or humiliation or whatever you perceive it to be strips you bare, like the archetypes, like the goddess, Inanna strips bare and goes into the underworld. The whole idea of death and rebirth and the cycles that the planets, right now are having these different aspects of shedding, like the eclipse. It was leaving one reality with who we think we are, moving to another one. And the gift now is that took me a long time to get where I am of having the wisdom and not being attached to the outcome, not judging myself and everything else, and turning around and being able to find the medicine in the vision quest of our life to see the underlying meaning and the power within it, and then start to connect to all those parts. So it was bit by bit that, my pain, like everybody, led me step by step to one mentor or one modality after the next. But my number one goal when everything fell apart the first time was, what's weird? What's something I've never heard of? And I went into the Bodhi tree when it used to exist in LA. And I didn't know anything about spirituality, religion, nothing. It was all intellectual in my family. And I went to the little used bookstore in the back and picked up a book, and it was like someone channeling dolphins from another planet. And I went, okay, that's weird. Let's do that. So, yeah, opening all the doors along the path.
I think that you and I are long lost siblings. I think you're my sister, honestly, because not everything the same, but so many things. And perhaps that's the truth for all of all of us who found our spiritual path and started growing.
Yeah. Well, it's the common thread in the collective. And what's happening now is the accelerated evolution, the grand societal reset, the big metamorphosis, whatever you call this era, this decade, this time that we're in. Even scientists agree that Mother Nature has pulled back the bars on evolution, which means faster extinctions, faster evolution. We can process through what you might consider lifetimes of, bonds, agreements, vows, karmic knots. I see energy, so I see them in different ways. And as they show up, they're just a part of the frequency, what you can allow in and what you can allow out. And it's coming up so fast now. It's like we used to walk around the track and there was a hurdle every so often. And then we started to jog, and now we're running. And instead of like, why are we hitting all these barriers? Why does it feel like I'm always shedding something? Why is this rebirth happening? Why is this? It's like, this is what we've asked for. This is what we've prepared for. And the more we go, yeah, that fell apart. What does that mean? What's the doorway that's opening up? Then it takes you into being in two states at once, which I think is the most powerful lesson underneath all the things I pursued, energy medicine and shamanism and mystery schools and everything. It was, what's underneath that? What's underneath that? What's underneath that? And then what's the most fun and fastest, although I did replace that with optimal because I don't like to push any timing on anything anymore. So the wisdom that comes out of taking your experiences, and panning for the gold and composting it and drinking that elixir of what you've been through personally. It's kind of the topic that we're talking about, the idea of ancient wisdom schools or mystery schools or sanctuaries or cults or all the different names they had for passing traditions on. Was really the interesting part was that we were all sworn to secrecy. And we were sworn to secrecy because the word mystery means mute. It means shut up, literally. And so it was like, you are going to get initiated into this and you will shut up. You promise you will never, ever, ever reveal this. And so we're still processing that, right? All the times and the lives that we came to bring into this accelerated evolution right now was like, to me, it's like we took all these parts of our soul and we said, all right, who wants to come into this, accelerated evolution? Okay, let's take all the burned at the stake lives, all the outcast lives, all the disowned lives, all the, beheaded and controlled and repressed and whatever, every version of that, and both sides, because we played both sides, like it or not. Then the cycle of life can come alive in you. And you go, oh, that's right. I know how to walk through the dark. I've done that before. Oh, that's right. I have clients who, interestingly, come to the point where they're like, you know what? Here's my new challenge. I don't see my problems on the horizon anymore. And I just realized I don't know how to live with what I want coming true, being here. So I think that all the fear that's come up, all the wars that are, the pulling apart in the separation of this contrast is within us. And when we accept what we consider our failures, and that we brought all of these patterns, and everything really up to this moment is to complete a lot of patterns, a lot of agreements, a lot of vows, a lot of contracts, a lot of whatever you want to call them. And they are all in the same vein, and they're all about us not accepting who we are, and therefore tuning back into this wisdom that's already in us. It's in our bones, it's in our cells, it's in all the other bones of our bodies that lived on this planet, that are right here, right now on the planet.
It's all about remembering, isn't it?
Yeah.
There was an old story that when you're born, an angel comes and presses on your top lip and goes, shh. And that's why we all have that little indentation on our top lip.
I love it. Yes.
Don't tell what you know.
Right? And now it's the time when we get to be the people who free ourselves. And then we look around and start to realize that we didn't do it wrong. We don't have to worry about how we do it. We have to start listening within. And you have these other lives in your soul. The way I see it is like a big piece of source, like bloop, bloop, and that's your soul. And then that as a soul, you go, hey, let's try this and this and this and this and this and this. And you have all these lives that are simultaneous or already exist. And you're tuned into this one, but you're tuned into this one as what's been coming to me as a pinnacle life. It's a master remembering your mastery. It's freeing yourself enough, not just from the conditioned mind or the trauma, which is very real and very prevalent right now. And it needs to be, because it's coming out of the soil. It's coming out of the trees. It's coming out of the water. It's like a shedding for everything of the layers of fear and abuse, because it's an old story. We can shut that and say, ooh, wow, and pan for the gold. And then we can walk through the underworld. We can walk through the shadow. We can walk through the fear. We can walk through watching the play or the war right, of other people's reality without making it our own.
I had
And
a I had a wonderful spiritual teacher back in the mid 90s who used to say that everything is unfolding in divine order. He said we may not see it at first, we may not understand it, but there's a purpose for everything that happens in our lives.
yeah, absolutely. And it's hard to accept because we were told to never think we're good enough, to never think there's enough, to need something else to be happy, something else to be good enough in some form. And that external authority is sloughing off because of the age of Aquarius, because of the different portals we're going through so quickly now, so powerfully in the year of the dragon, and all of these cosmic energies that are creating a very unique atmosphere for us to walk through, right, in our time-space continuum. And I love this. Shh, I just feel, I want to feel this like, shh, because it seems like it's the other way now. Like, what if you realized that when you were you had a particular story, a particular promise to your soul, and that included everything that's happened till right now?
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about the mystery schools as much as you can. How about the Egyptian mystery school?
Yes, well, this is the classic one I think that most of us think of, even though, of course, Greece had the most and the most famous at the time and the most powerful, but they were so good at shut up that nobody knows what the Eleusinian mysteries were, even though they were the biggest deal ever. And so the Egyptian mysteries are so well preserved in our spiritual DNA and in the carvings, the land. If you go to Egypt, you feel it immediately. It is truly the most potent place I've ever been. The closest I've come to that was Chaco Canyon, and here where I live at some of the Mayan pyramids where I had other lives. And the palpable energy is an important link for us right now. So the left eye mysteries, the right eye mysteries, the balancing of the sacred masculine and the feminine, the remembering that there's such a thing as sacred masculine and sacred feminine, because all we've experienced is out of balance, masculine and feminine. And it's been that way so normal in our cultures for so long that even with the awakening, it's just almost impossible to imagine. So the mystery schools like Vision Quests and the mysteries of the Native Americans, they all do something to push you and your limits. So might be plant medicine, might be bloodletting, right? Draining your blood so you get that altered state, chanting, drumming, right? All these different things that you begin to tune into. With the Egyptian mystery schools, they're rooted in Atlantis, like almost everything. And my primary guide from my first mystery school was Thoth, and was who I channeled my mystery school through. He had me rewrite the emerald tablets once. I just sleep with it under my pillow. And so the way that it comes to everybody is different, but it was about the awakening of the vision, remembering science and magic are the same, that writing is magic in action, that words are magic in action, that your intention as a creator is coming through you. And your right eye, your left eye, right, are a left or a feminine or a masculine meridian, Aida or Pingala, and the caduceus, which is, the life force, the serpent, the snake that's meant to feed each of your chakras in an even and balanced way, hasn't been able to, right? So the Kundalini awakening happening in the dragon year is what the serpent energy that the Egyptians brought as your life force energy from your inner eye. So would wind up, pour into this third eye here, fill the pituitary, activate the whole inner eye, all the different glands, the corpus callosum, thalamus, hypothalamus, everything that makes up the Egyptian all-seeing eye is actually the center of your brain, cut to the side. That's what they were representing. And it triggers this chain reaction that awakens that eye back to the pineal. And then the pineal, the crown, the 1,000-petaled lotus, the pine cone, whatever version of mystery school you talk about, opens. And it's like a radar tower, with all these different receivers and receptors. And that's the wings on the top of the caduceus from the Greek schools. And so the Egyptian school was about deep magic because it was transformation of walking through death and doing it in a way that you lived the mastery of your barbarian ways, Thoth would say. He said that when he got to Egypt from Atlantis, that everyone was a barbarian, that it took him thousands of years to turn these barbarians into something, that became this incredible culture that is what most of us figure on. And what I think is relevant now is that balance of remembering there was the sacred feminine wisdom school, and there was the sacred masculine, and there was the child, the divine child of the two, which is you. And so being the manifestation of that is that snake energy. The all-seeing eye is also when it includes the wajet, which is the vulture at the back, which you often see over Isis's head, the wings, and the snake coming, or the uraeus that you see on all the different Egyptian things, are two goddesses. And it represents the vulture goddess, Nekhbet, coming down and bringing spirit. The wings, the feathers always represent spirit, your connection to the spiritual realms, to the higher self, to all of that. And connects that again down through this mechanism in the brain, bringing it in so that your project out into the world through the snake head. They see that that's life force transforming. And when the snake sheds, it's already fully formed underneath. And here the Maya built their entire culture, every sacred geometrical, from their astronomy to their math, to the perfection they built their pyramids, to their art, to their designs, was all built on this one snake that's only found here. And it had the pattern of the crisscross that they just took, movement and measure, and did everything from that. The shedding would be, it was a rattlesnake. Every rattle is another crown chakra opened. And so when they shed their skin, their identity, it's the same thing as letting go of who you think you are, letting go of the past identity, letting other people be the authority to who you are, what you listen, what you decide you need, what you feed yourself. It's not worth going through chasing something and forcing it to happen. I did it a lot, I promise.
It's funny that you mentioned Thoth or Toth. My wife and I met through an interfaith seminary here in New York back in the late 1990s. And her calling was the feminine divine. She fell in love with the feminine divine. She wanted to know why the feminine divine was not more present in the world. And one of the things that she studied were the Egyptian goddesses and also the Hindu goddesses. And she studied the Egyptian goddess Seshat, who was the writing goddess, she who scrivens. In fact, she wrote a book called She Who Scrivens. And when we were starting to date and we were getting serious, one day I said to her, "Am I Thoth enough?" And she said, "Yes, you are." And that's how we bonded.
I love it. That's so great. Yes. And there it is. There's very little written about that aspect, right? Especially of that. Of course, we heard of Isis. And she's a bit like Mary, right? Like one of the few divine feminine goddesses or essences or that lasted through time, that held a space for the divine feminine, despite the level of the patriarchal attack on it and all of that. So the really wonderful thing now is people are embodying wisdom schools within. That's why your own story is more interesting than anybody else's story or what they tell you that you should do or what you want to do. And it's not to say that it's easy. That's part of the path of a wisdom school. Is in Egypt, you had to go through a lot of initiations. You had to in all of them. They're all a little bit scary. It might be, go out in the wilderness with nothing, not even a knife or water or anything, and face all of your fears, survive, and you come back a different person. And when you, there was I think it's Edfu, it's a temple on the Nile that was dedicated to Sobek, who was an alligator god and a crocodile. And they had a place, because it was literally right on the Nile, they had an opening where they let the crocodiles in and they trapped them. And then they built this thing. And one of the initiations was you had to swim down into this dark place. And it was built so that you had to go like this kind of to get through it. The wall came down, the wall came up, and you couldn't see. And there were these alligators in there. And you had to make your way through to the other side or get eaten by an alligator, I guess. So this is similar to what we're doing right now, watching the world that we know fall apart, not knowing who we're becoming, being handed a lot of our old fears to take a look at again so we don't bring them with us. This is a wisdom school of the earth, and we're all collectively in it. So what I love about them, because I just kept being drawn to one after another, and was the sacred geometry, the science. We embodied the Mayan calendar. And this was a long time ago, before I knew anything about the Mayans whatsoever. I had no idea I was going to live here or that I was going to fall in love with it or remember any of that life. And it keeps awakening a new level of heart to me, a depth of heart that I haven't felt anywhere. Egyptian mystery schools awaken that spiritual intellect, and that ability to see and to turn it into something very mysterious and very powerful, and to travel time and space. Thoth teaches about traveling time and space and magic words to say when you're moving in and out of dimensions to keep yourself safe. And then my mystery school teacher, and Unveil Melchizedek was another teacher I studied with, you started to activate the light body, right, through the sacred geometry. I think this is very powerful. It's available to everybody on YouTube now, right? You can start to look up your Merkaba. You can look up the star tetrahedron. You can look up the flower of life, the secret of the flower of life. And so these are in our consciousness now. You see people wearing t-shirts with this now. And these are codes. These are mystery school texts. These hold codes that when you see them, when you look at them, when you tattoo them on your body, they are running currents of energy. And they're connected through time and space to, I guess, pretty much to every wisdom tradition. But you don't want to be connected to everything, which is why some of the first things that you learn is to activate your light body at what I call the optimum speed, the state for you at this time, for your highest good at this time, which isn't what you think. It's surrendering to that higher knowledge. And this opens that inner eye, and then you work with so many entities. This is the part I loved, was going to the sacred places and then working with the different entities, not just in the sacred places, but like with Thoth and with what was interesting last year, I got called to Greece. They just suddenly were like, you got to go to Greece. And I'm like, what, right now? What? I love Greece. I have a memory of Greece very strong and everything from when I was younger, but it was just so sudden and strange. And one of the things I discovered after going okay, where am I meant to go? And, like a little spiritual research project, what do we need to go activate? Was I kept saying, where's the site where very few people go? I need that site. I want access. I need to go into the temples. I want to go up to the altars. I need to talk to the stones. I need to be in these sacred places. And I found this place, which was not only stunning in the amount of beautiful things that are there, the number of goddess temples, Artemis, Aphrodite, Athena, Messini, and all different ones, and Isis. And I'm like, what? Isis? What? Now, I know there's temples to Isis in a lot of places, but I never knew that there was in Greece. And so there was this incredible download that we had, not just awakening the ancient Greek mysteries, but finding this temple of Isis that they were just digging up. So they had only excavated this one end. There was no barrier. So I took my Isis statue that had just come from Egypt and walked down, and they built a moat around the building to represent the Nile. And so you see this cross culture. And then I found out they moved the headquarters for the cult of Isis from Alexandria to Greece, to Messini. And this was, they were excavating more of it while we were there last year. So next time we go, it's going to be pretty amazing. So that to me, though, was representative of what's happening now. We're uncovering the mysteries here in the Mayan land too. They're uncovering so many places so quickly now because there's money in it now.
As you shared before, we're living in a world where things are starting to slip apart, especially the rights that women have earned since the 1970s, slowly being chipped away by those who would deny them those rights. Tell us about the Mystery School of Sacred Feminine Arts and what you bring to the women who attend and the men who attend.
Yes. Well, the thing is that the conversation was anger towards the masculine or the patriarchy, or who do we direct the anger at as we wake up to realizing prejudice and inequality for women and for all kinds of different things. And then to see little victories, but not a lot, to become more and more aware of the inequality. And now to see people realizing history is somebody's version of the story, that most of these places are conquered people, and that they had to keep the mysteries hidden because it was personally empowering. Your direct access to your own inner voice, to communicating with the flowers or the tree spirit or the sun, getting what you need directly from any element that's alive, and taking away that ability to think and believe and connect to everything being alive, everything having an essence, a medicine, a soul, a blueprint, a personality, a power. And that literally turning, these temples of worship in so many places into, burying them, forbidden, places. So this is finding a place where the art of the sacred feminine, which is honoring that part of us that is intuitive, that is a creator, that gives life to what we give focus to. So we are literally meant to each be creating our own reality, and our head is our own world. And we all have a unique experiences, unique past that's coming to completion. Now we can connect to all the wisdom schools we've ever been to, whether we were a mentor, a teacher, or a student, or whatever, through time and space on this planet or other planets. Doesn't matter. That's the access we're going to have now. So this is about personally accessing your own inner frequency. I call it your soul signature frequency, or your song. And it's something you can hear now, you can access now. And what took me 5, 10, 15, 20 years, for 30 some years I've been on the path, consciously, it's taking very, very short amounts of time for people to come back to this. So what it's about is learning to activate your light body, understand what that means without having to go through an entire 3-year mystery school, or to read all the sacred text, or to do all of the different things. There is a journey that you go through because the initiation has to happen. And the initiation is you're being willing to step out of your norm, out of your comfort zone. You're going that way anyway. And this is a way of learning who you are and how to master your mind and your emotions in a way that you accept everything about you, above and below, yin and yang, shadow and light. And you start to watch from a 5th dimensional, non-judgmental space where you're able to be in the world experiencing what you're experiencing. And you're also able to be watching. And this is what masters do. You're going to remember the mastery that you already have by increasing your intuition and getting a chance to practice it, to have it immediately fed back to you. The accuracy of, if you're willing to do these simple but really deep and powerful practices that pull from all these different traditions and all of these medicines. And this is the beauty of it. It's like the Rainbow Tribe. So one of my guides from, 25 years ago, I think, is White Buffalo Calf woman, who many people know as the peace pipe bearer, the sign of the white buffalo, coming, being born, being a sign that she's coming back and bringing the Rainbow Tribe back together. And to me, that's what this is, that you can't come into sync with everyone else until you find your own rhythm. And this is a huge deconditioning. It's a huge shedding of not just unhealthy relationships or negative thoughts about ourselves, but actually not seeing either as right or wrong or good or bad, becoming whole, because the sacred feminine has to be brought back to life, and the sacred masculine has to also be balanced at the same time. It's because they're both out of balance. It's not one over the other. It's both. And so focusing on the one that's lying, there, and bringing it back in is like meditation being like 4 or 5, 10, 20 minutes of meditation or whatever is like 4 hours of sleep or something. It's like that empowerment, giving yourself permission. You will run into your fears and your blocks on your way to accepting your inner voice, accepting your visions, listening to your dreams, going by your intuition, learning a truth testing method, a pendulum, muscle testing, a body compass, becoming an oracle for yourself in some form, whether it's using an oracle card or doing, an activation, understanding that these different types of mystery processes that can come from all different cultures, if you really love the Avalon goddess, Merlin, fairies and all of that wonderful stuff that we're going to be playing with in Glastonbury, then your guides, your optimal way of communicating can come through that. It can be what you love. And there's not going to be retribution for you becoming who you are in a way that actually matters. So the fear that people won't like it, no, they won't. When you start to be different, when you start to speak up, when you start to say, oh, this isn't for me, but you can watch the news, but it's not for me. I'm going to be doing something, I'm going to be outside, watching the garden, or whatever. Choosing for yourself is the easiest way for all of these beautiful energies that you've already encoded into your soul to reach out to you. But most people are learning or desperately craving, and not enough listening, integrating, receiving, being. So the awakening is becoming being, the being.
And it's also about becoming whole within yourself. There was a wonderful teacher I had many years ago. She used to hold these gatherings here in New York on Friday nights. They called them salons back in the 80s. And she would bring in these speakers on various spiritual topics. And one night there was a speaker that I just didn't resonate with. And she noticed that, and she asked me to stay after everyone had left. She was well into her 80s at the time. And after everyone left, she took my hands and looked in my eyes. And she said, Victor, I'd like to share something with you. And in a motherly way, she said, Victor, God does not require that we be holy, but God would love for us to be whole. She said that. It changed my life.
Yeah, because we all want to make a difference. We all have a lot of love to give. We all have this craving of unfulfilled desires at a lower level. And when you find freedom from that by just accepting it, like the scale of consciousness by David Hawkins, and we have our own version of it, it's the most powerful biofeedback tool when you realize that if you're operating with a lot of shame, or if you're operating with a lot of craving, like if I get this, then I'll be happy. If I have more money, then I'll be happy. When my hip doesn't hurt anymore, then I can start my life again. All of that is lack of acceptance, and that keeps us from receiving. The emotional body lets go, it forgives. The mind goes into harmony. The environment you live in is transcendence, and your perspective becomes compassion. When you learn these kinds of things about the wisdom of understanding where you are, like you would if you were looking at a map, where am I? Where do I want to go? If I don't know where I am, it doesn't matter if I see where I want to go on the map. Right? Finding that first, and then doing these things to shift your energy and to feel like you can in any moment, right? To call on the violet flame, or to call on any of the many different things we just using different spirit guides, animal spirit guides, whatever you resonate with, it's going to be the best and easiest way. And yet most of us not only have that inner fear of some kind of retribution around being weird, being a healer, being whatever, but the inner part about the vulnerability of trusting yourself. And that's the most exciting part about now. And finding communities, like this, my school or other people, you find a community of people you go through, and then you watch other people and you go, wow, like I feel so blessed because I'm on my journey every day, and then I'm helping other people. So I get to see the bigger picture of this is a pattern. Look at all the people going through this in different ways, in their own stories, in rewriting that story, in that storyline. So the empowering thing is that you become aware of yourself, and then self-love kicks in, because accepting who you are is way more interesting. And then you start living in the moment. And the moment, all the stuff we've heard, all the many, many teachings of be in the now never really got through to me, because I always wanted to achieve. And then I was achieving my spiritual path. And now it's about recognizing, how are you doing what you're doing? Are you grasping at your wisdom? Or are you saying, wow, I'm here on a fully funded mission. It must already be within me. Maybe I'll go listen or talk to a tree. Instead of rushing around. When I was going through my divorce and bankruptcy, and I didn't know how to do anything, I'd start flipping out about, I have to make some money, and I'd start running around. I devised a policy to force myself. I had to sit down for 20 minutes. Now, luckily at the time I had a massage chair, so that was another enticement. So I sat down at my massage chair for 20 minutes and I chanted. For me, that's a vibration shifter. Chanting sacred words. And this would shift my state so that I wasn't trying to find a solution from a state, a low state of consciousness, which is like being in the basement trying to see where you're going without a light. It's like, why can't I get there? I'm such a loser. Wait a minute, I'm in the basement. Let me go to a new place. So being the master of your emotions and your mind means you start to realize how you're living an illusion that's simply a projection of what you've decided was true. And the minute you start accepting even where you are, you start shifting into being a different state. And from that different state, you can move into, like, courage is the first power state. When energy is coming to you to support you, everything under that is a force state. That means it takes enormous force, willpower, mental, emotional, physical. All the stars need to align for you to really feel like you could get up and make a difference. Otherwise, it's that stepping out of the known over and over. So what I love about mystery schools is it's constantly showing you a little doorway, a little tool to opening a new flow of energy, a new channel for communication, a new flow of healing, a new remedy, so to speak. And it doesn't have to be in person, or it doesn't have to be droppers of flower essences or anything. It's the frequency is there, and you can tune into the wisdom schools you've been in. You can tune into the future potential you that you came to be as the nexus point of all these connections. So whatever you feel drawn to, wisdom school, goddess school, learning to awaken your third eye, activate, upgrade your chakras, like we work with all of these things, soul retrievals and spirit guide, talking to animals and spirit guides and everything. This to me is the most fun way to live, because you tune into the part that means something to you. You don't have to know how to talk to everything or how to connect to everything. You get to start with what you love, and then it grows. And then you're doing something fun. And then you get to fill up and you receive, because that's where we're meant to create from, is overflow. So those concepts are the kinds of things that we teach, that you are in the process of learning, as all of us.
Share a little with us, if you will, about the indigenous shamanic practices, the Lakota and the Mayan.
Oh, yes. Well, what's interesting is, like sweat lodges, most people are familiar, the Maya call it temescals, and they build more of a permanent structure that looks like a tiny igloo out of brick clay. And there's a little entrance, looks like a little igloo, and you crawl through, and it represents the birth canal. And you, in both of them, right, you go inside of this womb, basically, sit around a fire in very closed space, and you sweat a lot, and you vision, and you typically face a lot of fears. It is in some ways similar to ayahuasca, in that you can go through a journey in an altered state to push your fears. The first one I did was just an hour of pure fear, and it felt like 4 hours. So I told my ayahuasca shaman, I'm done. I want out. What do I do? And she's, you're not allowed to talk, and it's dark, and I lost my body an hour before, and I'm like, oh, I can't handle any more of this. And so I called whatever the signal was, and she came over and bent over me, and I'm like, I'm done. How do I get out? And she's like, she has, honest to God, this gravelly voice, and she said, there is no out. There's only through. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I need to get off the ride now. And she's like, this is ayahuasca. There's no out. There's only through. And it's just the best metaphor for literally everything. Like the way out is the way through. The problem is the solution. The portal is at the bottom of the dark night of the soul. And when we similar, I'm a natural healer, so I only use Western medicine when necessary, like breaking your wrist or something. And everything does have a purpose for sure. However, the idea to cover up the symptoms rather than go to the core of the issue. And that's what I love about shamanic practice, is to go to the core, to rebirth, essentially. And so that's one way that they do it. And I had massive claustrophobia and fears that got triggered in the king's chamber. So the first time I went to Egypt with my mystery school mentor, we had 222 people, and we had 4 hours for 2 days in a row in the pyramid, just to our group. And the first day I managed to squeeze into the king's chamber right before they said no more people, and everybody else lined up the rest. And we had didgeridoos and chanting and music and opened portals, and it was crazy. And when we came back after 4 hours, we had blown out the power on the whole Giza plateau. And we didn't know that till later, but we did know that the light went out in the king's chamber, and they have to, I'm assuming they pump air in, I don't know, but there was no light. So we were in the pitch dark and sweating buckets and come back from this, and it was pure claustrophobia for me. And it triggered this healing experience, which again is a whole mystery school experience. So it started in the king's chamber and didn't end for 5 days until we got to the temple of Philae at Isis temple. And it was a recurring theme. So when I was studying with my Lakota Sioux shaman, they were like, we're going to be doing a sweat lodge. And it's this many-day process on Indian time. That's what they say, right? Is you just sit around and you do stuff when spirit moves you. So it took 3 days. We went to the forest and to the hills. You talk to the trees. You speak to them. You choose the trees that want to help to create the structure. You come back, you build the structure, you put blankets and everything over it. You make spirit food. There's just this huge thing and a cleansing that happens, and then you go into the sweat lodge. So I said, now remember, I have a really bad claustrophobia, so let me sit by the door. FYI, you know what happened. Don't ever tell your teacher that. Don't ever tell your mystery teacher that, because guess where I sat? Right at the back. And there's just fire pit right in front of you and people, and there's no other room. And so I got to have a incredible experience. I don't do them anymore here. When I do my retreats, I take people, we go into the caves, we go into the water caves, we do rebirthing, we do Mayan Aztec ceremonies, we do cacao ceremonies and spas, we do all kinds of different amazing experiences. But I skipped the part with the Temescal. The other thing that I love about it is the celebration of the spirit leaving its body. It's that shedding. Again, like the Maya really have the snake being the number one god. It's that reverence for that which pours down from the sun, gives us life, and then shows us the way back. And the way is to go like this in life, the way the snake does. Go up and go down. That's the way life is. Life is never going to be up, 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 up. And expecting that causes suffering. So you go back to then a Buddhist tradition, right? What is suffering is attachment. If you're not attached, then you shed. Your identity dissolves and you move to the next one. So all of the different experiences, the vision quests, the jaguar ceremonies that I've been a part of were some that I created for my group that turned intergalactic, because we were given permission to rent ceremonial caves that only the ancient Maya had used for ceremony. And I was gifted a jaguar skull from the Maya shaman, the ones that don't come out of the jungle. The real ones, they don't come out of the jungle. They shapeshift and everything. But the ceremonial leader it said to come to one of the ceremonies, as he become a very good friend of mine. He left the house. He always turns around and looks at everything as he's coming to our ceremonies and says, "What does she need?" And the jaguar skull was like me. And he's like, "Oh my gosh," because he was gifted it, from the Maya, and told to use it only in very specific ways. And so I held that, and that was like an incredible download. And I had already had about 6 other experiences with the jaguar, even from my student calling me when she heard I was coming here. And she's Mexican and very, very psychic. And she called me and she said, "Don't try to find the shaman, they'll find you. And the jaguar spirit will come to you when you go to the jungle." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm just going for 2 months." That was 8.5 years ago. I live here. So,
I love the fact that you are an animal communicator and a dolphin communicator. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but marine scientists have actually found that the dolphins have their own version of the Bible. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
Yes, in the dolphin version of Ecclesiastes, it says, "To everything there's a season and a time for every purpose under heaven."
You're so cute.
Tell us what message the dolphins have for us, especially the way we're treating the world.
Wow. Well, that's been one of the most amazing things because of my experiences in Egypt early on. It became my passion to do retreats in sacred places the way that my mentor had done them, and to get private access whenever possible, and to do the activations and channel the energies in situ, in the moment. The power of it was so out of control. And then I went through different things and divorce and all this, and my kids were growing up and moving around, and finally they all ended up in the same place. And my partner got the download, "We need to get rid of everything and go to Thailand." So I was like, okay. So we came here and for a wedding for 2 months, and we were going to then go on to Thailand, which we haven't been to yet. So what happened is that within a few weeks of getting here, I met the lady who started the Dolphin Center here. And I'm a flipper girl. If you're flipper age, I loved flipper and dolphins. And I tried to get pregnant for 8 years. And when I was finally pregnant and didn't know it, I went on a wild dolphin swim. And they were around me all the time. It was phenomenal. And then that was my daughter who died later. And then, so I had this thing with dolphins. I didn't know you could kiss them. I didn't know any of this. And so I met her because she called me about coming to a retreat that I was doing. And we ended up talking about that. And she said, "Well, why don't you come?" And took us out to one of the dolphin centers in Isla Mujeres. And I got to spend the day with the founder, so we could do anything, like free time with the dolphins, and hug a dolphin like this, heart to heart, kiss a dolphin for as long as I wanted, play with dolphins. It was out of this world. It's more powerful medicine than so many other. And I love all forms of vibrational medicine, all forms of shamanic tools and meditation, all of them. I love them all. But when you're with a dolphin, they bring your frequency and your brainwave up to bliss. And when you're in that state, you can rewire, and they do. They scan you, they sonar you, they rewire you. They can help you release things that could normally take a really long time. And they do it while having fun. So their number one message is joy. And they're masters. They have 2 enormous brains, two the size of ours, and their corpus callosum, that center part, that inner eye, is about this thick. They sleep 1 brain at a time. They never sleep. And they are, I have since then was honored for 2 years to go every Friday and do healing work with them. with paraplegics, primarily one lady, where they would let the therapist bring the dolphin up to her, send different energies. And then I would get in and do my light body healing, and I would watch the energies and tell the trainer what I saw, or the dolphins would tell me, well, we really want to do this to her heart. And I'd say, can you send the energy to her heart? And, and it was just phenomenal. And every time the owner would come, we would spend, 4 or 5 days there with the dolphins. And she was an energy healer too. And that was how I birthed my retreats here. Was I was waiting to get back to Egypt to go to the pyramids, and I realized that there's pyramids everywhere here. The shaman started coming out of the woodwork, the jaguar spirit guide, and I met the dolphin lady. So the dolphins have been talking. We just finished a retreat for the equinox where we had 3 days with the dolphins. And last year I went to a new place that they have that had a baby that was 5 months old. And I was not allowed to get in. They were closed renovations, but the owner asked for them to let me go in and look around to see if I would like to do my retreats there. And the people are phenomenal. Oh my gosh, they're so loving. They're so beautiful. These are not abused animals at all. And they're doing important work. They've asked to do this work. I know it's hard. I'm a huge animal lover. So it's difficult when you have that feeling, but the white tigers slapped me really bad. Once I was a docent at the Albuquerque Zoo, and I was sitting there feeling sorry for them and pity and sadness. And they said, cut it out. Sending pity energy to anyone, seeing anyone as a victim doesn't empower them. And it's not the truth. We know what we're doing. We have our purpose just like you. We have to interact with people. And it's not to excuse bad behavior on anybody's part. It's to respect the sovereignty and purpose and spiritual mission of every being. And so the dolphins are here. They keep raising the frequency in the oceans. They're raising the frequency in all the waters, including the water in our bodies. And they're trying their best. They're doing their best to keep the frequency up for us as we slog our way out of this dark times that we've been in. And they're super excited if we would play more. Yeah. They just want you to play more. They said, if you would just play more, stop taking everything so seriously, and don't think that you have to be perfect in whatever you think that means. And they play, they have sex all the time. They just are like, they're enjoying the hell out of it, and they're super, super advanced. The other thing I think is really special is that dolphins, whales, and humans are the only species on the planet that have grandmothers. Everything else has a death program that when you're done reproducing, you die off. So there's a purpose to that. And that, to me, is part of our responsibility to remember our wisdom, to understand the grandmother wisdom, grandmother whale, grandmother dolphin. There's this special bond we have, and they work with us, whether you've touched them or kissed them or not. And they're reincarnating to gather you. This baby dolphin started channeling through me like 3 weeks later, just spontaneously during a live stream. And originally they named him Perseus, which is a Greek hero who went through hell, which is to show us that's what life is. We are all doing that. Okay. And yet what happens? There's always help from the gods or the goddesses. There's always somebody there to give you the magic shield or tell you the secret thing or, whatever it is. And to remember that. And now they've named him Anubis. And I find this absolutely fascinating. And they named his mother Osiris and his dad Zeus. So these energies, and it was like, yes, I'm this ancient soul and I'm here and I've got to be in this body and I have to be here where I can touch people. And you have to bring us people. So they don't usually have dolphins interact until they're over maybe a year, then maybe they start to see if they want to interact with people. And so we went in December and I said, can we see Anubis Perseus. And they were like, well, you can pat his head. So they brought him over and we got to say hi and we got to pat his head and it was like, oh, yay. And then in March we went and I said, what do we get to do? And they said, you're going to get to touch his body. He's gotten to where he's comfortable with you touching his body. And so we get there and they're like, okay, time. Who wants to go first? And I'm like, well, sorry, but yes, I am. And I got up and there's a certain thing you do when they kiss you. And you put your hands here, but they come up and they try to put their nostrum there, right here. And he's not done this with anyone except for the trainer a couple times. And he just started, instead of like giving me his body, he kept trying to come up and kiss me. And I was like, is it okay? Is it okay? And she goes, he wants to kiss you. And so I got to kiss him, and I was his first kiss, other than the trainer.
We've got a couple of minutes left, and I want to share that you are a featured presenter at the Glastonbury Portal to Ascension Conference in September 27th to 29th. Please tell us what you're going to be sharing.
Yes, so it's the mystical Isle of Avalon, which is the place of, the Holy Grail or the chalice. It's got the sacred wells and the springs. It's the place behind the mists. That's what we're doing, right? The wisdom schools. That's what everyone is waking up to, seeing through the veil, seeing through the mists. So the really fun thing is that I'm going to take you there. They gave me a vision of the tour, which is the Isle. And they showed these little doors all over it. And like, you're going to open these little doors and go through the mists. And so we're going to go in and we're going to access this other world. And we're going to talk to the stones and we're going to talk to the waters and we're going to talk to the Lady of Avalon. And Arthur's come through too. Merlin's been a guide of mine for a long time. And the Celtic energies, the stones want to speak. So we're going to see what comes through, and both for a group and to see if there's any special messages. And it's a really great place to come. Mm-hmm.
Are you going to visit the Chalice Well?
Absolutely, absolutely. The Chalice Well and the White Spring and the tour, and it's an amazing place that's full of the other thing I like too is that it's a crossing point, a meeting point of, druids and ancient goddesses and aliens and Christian, and Mary and Magdalene and Michael lines and King Arthur and the Holy Grail and just all of these different mystic traditions that again hold those mysteries. And what I love about going somewhere, so even if it's not that far for you, you really want to come, because getting these people together, right, with the intention that we're holding, with this space that Neil's holding, with so much love, so much heart, the intention of opening these doors to everyone to have a mystical experience that's completely designed to you. There's nothing like being somewhere, because the key codes, I call it, that you carry are needed there. And you might not know, but you might go to the Chalice Well and you bring something that's needed, that is a puzzle piece, and then you might receive something and you might be aware of it, or you might not be aware of it till later. And the healing and the awakening and the beauty of it. And then we all put it into the Akasha and send it out to the world. So whatever we transform and experience is on offer for everyone else too.
Nan Akasha, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your experience and your wisdom and your wonderful heart. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you too, sweetie. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day, everybody.